Welcome. You're with me, Simon.
And me, Julie.
We have another tribute today, and we are paying respects to an 8-year-old girl called Phyllis Hirst, who was murdered in Bradford, 1938.
Now let's pass it over to John and Carol for a deep dive into what happened in 1938.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take source material, could be articles, research, notes, and really pull out the key insights, those moments that make you go, aha, just get you properly informed quickly.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. And today we're diving into something quite heavy. It's a chilling cold case from Britain back in 1938. Shook a whole community and, well, it's still unsolved. So our mission for you today is to really unpack the facts around the murder of an 8-year-old girl, Phyllis Hirst. We want to understand the context, what society was like then, and maybe why this mystery has lasted so long.
Right.
We've got a stack of stuff here. Old newspaper reports, bits from police files, historical analysis. Should give us a good picture.
And I think it's important to say this goes beyond just the sort of grim details of the crime itself. Phyllis Hirst's case, it really shines a light on, well, the limitations investigators faced back then, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And also the power of the media, how it could shape everything, put pressure on people, and, the lasting effect these unsolved things have on a community's memory.
Yeah.
It gives us some, I think, really valuable insights into Britain between the wars, how they dealt with something so awful.
Okay, so let's get into it. To really feel the impact, you need the setting.
Yeah.
We're in Bradford, West Yorkshire. The date is October 28th, 1938.
Right.
And this is where Phyllis Hirst lived. An 8-year-old girl lived on Stirling Street.
Yeah.
And her age, 8. That detail jumps out immediately from all the old reports. They always mentioned it, made it so much more distressing,
It really does. And she was just doing what kids did, playing outside. Her friend, Jean Bayliss, lived nearby on William Street. They were playing together just before it happened.
It's just a normal evening.
Exactly. A completely normal, innocent activity for kids back then, which, of course, makes what happened next even more shocking.
And what happened next was horrific. Her body was found, not just anywhere, but in a private carriage drive, sort of a secluded lane near All Saints Church in Little Horton Green.
Yeah, and the way the newspapers reported it, it's quite jarring, actually, looking back.
How so?
They consistently use this phrase, her outraged body.
Outraged body. What did that actually mean back then?
Well, in 1938, that was basically a euphemism. It hinted at sexual assault without going into graphic detail. Trying to be mindful of the social norms, I suppose.
Right, but still deeply unsettling.
Oh, incredibly. And that specific wording, it massively amplified the public shock. It framed the murder not just as a killing, but as this profound violation of innocence, of everything society thought it should protect.
And that shockwave, you see it immediately in the public reaction, the media reaction. This wasn't just a local story buried inside the paper. It exploded. All the big Yorkshire papers, Hull Daily Mail, Yorkshire Evening Post, Bradford Observer, they were all over it.
Absolutely. It became this huge regional story. And the headlines themselves tell you a lot, like 60 detectives hunt child's murderer.
Wow, 60?
Right. That immediately signals the scale, how seriously the police were taking it, or at least how seriously the papers wanted the public to think they were taking it. It put immense pressure on them.
And they kept reporting on it?
Constantly. Even when there's nothing new, you'd see updates saying, no new developments. But just keeping it in the headlines kept that pressure cooker going.
It really speaks to how people felt. We found some context that while child murders back then in the UK, they always triggered this incredibly strong public reaction. Just intense grief, anger, people demanding justice.
Yeah.
It was seen as this total violation of childhood innocence,
Yeah.
There was even a report around that time of nearly 1,000 people attending a service for another murdered girl in Bradford. Maybe not Phyllis, but it shows that community outpouring.
It really does. And the media, they had a very specific way of framing these things in the 30s. It was almost like a script.
How do you...
Well, the offenders were always monsters. The victims were angels. If there were sexual elements, they'd highlight those, often calling the perpetrators things like evil, predatory pedophiles.
Right, very black and white.
Very. And this narrative, it didn't just reflect fear, it actively created it. It really pushed that stranger danger idea.
Oh, okay.
Suddenly, anyone unknown could be a threat. And the Hirst case, with the outraged body, the unknown killer, it fit that narrative perfectly. It just ramped up all those anxieties about children's safety.
So with all that pressure, all that media attention,
Yeah.
How did the police actually respond? You mentioned 60 detectives.
Yeah, by November 1st, just a few days after she was found, 60 detectives were on the case, led by Detective Superintendent J. O'Hara. For 1938, that's a huge mobilization of resources.
A massive effort. What leads did they have?
Well, the leads themselves kind of show the limitations they were working under. There was a mention of a dirty white canvas shoe found near the scene, possibly a clue.
Okay, physical evidence.
Right. Very basic, observable stuff. Then later in November, there was talk of a letter posted in Leeds being a fresh clue, though what was in it, we don't really know from the records.
Any suspects early on?
They cast a wide net. There was a man interviewed down in Liverpool, but the reports say he was set free after questioning pretty quickly, like November 1st. So cleared.
It really highlights the methods they had, doesn't it? Witness interviews, searching the area, looking for bits of circumstantial evidence.
Exactly. Very traditional police work. Shoe leather, basically.
No high-tech shortcuts back then.
None at all. And this is the crucial point, really. The technology. Fingerprinting, yes, that was established. But things like DNA profiling, decades away.
Right, so any biological evidence.
Exactly. If there was any, maybe from the assault hinted at by outraged body, they just couldn't link it definitively like we could today. The public records don't show detailed forensic findings in that regard. It's like a forensic black hole in the investigation. Their idea of evidence was just fundamentally different. It relied so much on what people saw, what they could physically find and hold, and that probably sealed the case's fate, looking back.
And that lack of advanced tools, the reliance on those older methods, it seems like it led to frustration pretty quickly.
Yeah, you see it in the newspaper reports throughout November 1938, that recurring phrase, no new developments.
A bad sign.
A very bad sign. It sort of foreshadows the fact that, well, the trail was going cold, fast.
And it did go cold, permanently.
It did. Officially, the murder of Phyllis Hirst is still an unsolved crime in the UK. And unlike some other old cases you hear about, there's nothing to suggest this one's ever been formally reopened or that files are being held back under Freedom of Information rules.
So it's just cold, an enduring cold case.
Pretty much. It just faded.
So if we had to sum it up, why did it stay unsolved? What were the key factors?
Well, it seems like a combination of things, really. First, the forensic science of the time was just rudimentary compared to now.
Right, the lack of DNA, etc.
Yeah. Then the reliance on those traditional methods interviews, searches, they just didn't turn up enough conclusive evidence. Plus, time passes, witness memories fade, physical evidence degrades if it wasn't collected or analyzed effectively in the first place.
And presumably no new compelling information ever surfaced later on?
Apparently not. Nothing strong enough to warrant reopening it seriously. It's quite sobering how a case like this, despite that initial massive effort, could just disappear into history.
Leaving behind. What?
Well, for the community, Bradford, it's often described as a kind of moral injury.
A moral injury.
Yeah, like a deep wound to the community's sense of safety, of justice. The fact that it was never solved, especially involving a child, it leaves this lingering feeling of vulnerability, maybe anger. It just sort of stays there, under the surface, passed down through generations even.
Shaping how people feel about safety, about whether justice is always possible.
Exactly. It becomes part of the town's story, even if people don't talk about it all the time. A scar.
So putting this all together for you, our listener, the murder of Phyllis Hirst back in 1938, it's obviously a tragedy, but it's more than just a sad story from the past. It really is a stark example of the challenges police faced before modern forensics. And it taps into those deep, deep anxieties about protecting children, anxieties we still feel today.
Absolutely. And while justice wasn't delivered for Phyllis, digging into these old mysteries gives us such valuable insights.
How so?
It tells us about the society back then, how policing worked or didn't work sometimes, how the media operated. It shows us the human cost of these unresolved crimes, the long shadow they cast.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. Even when there's no killer caught, no final answer, how do these unsolved cases, these historical wounds, keep shaping a community decades later?
Yeah. What does it actually mean for a place, for the people there to carry that kind of silent legacy of trauma? From a case like Phyllis Hirst's, something maybe unspoken, but never fully gone.
Something to definitely think about.
That brings us to the end of another sad story and a young life taken way too soon.
Yes, Simon, but we have paid our respects by doing this podcast and making Phyllis a story known. I know that we can't bring her back, but what we can do is remember her and her memory through this podcast. Rest in peace, Phyllis.
Wow, that was heartwarming and meaningful, Julie.
Okay, that's all we have for this one, so we will see you again on the next one. Take care and look after each other.